This is one of the most recognizable photographs of the 20th century, the Afghan refugee girl on the cover of National Geographic, 1985. It lands at the cruelest moment of the Soviet-Afghan War. In 10 years, 6 million people will flee the country. And these may be the most iconic frames of year 2021. The last American planes, after 20 years of war, lifting off from Kabul, empty-handed. Why does everyone want Afghanistan? The British Empire and the Russian Empire try to take it. The Soviet Union and the United States invade for decades. Pakistan, Iran, China ram their interests in from the sides. And yet, not a single state in history has managed to bend Afghanistan to its will. So what do these lands in the heart of Asia actually hide? Why, instead of a prosperous country with dream tourism and serious agriculture, do we see drugs by the acre and wars without end? How did Afghanistan, once the solar plexus of Eurasia, crossroads of peoples and civilizations, turn into a graveyard of empires? And what danger does it hold for the future? What does Afghanistan conjure for you today? Most likely, men with Kalashnikovs, women in burqas, endless poppy fields, addicts, maimed children, and all of it now run by the Taliban, unrecognized by most of the world, yet its leaders fly to official talks. In today's Afghanistan, war isn't a profession, it's a way of life. Rewind half a century and you find a poor country, yes, but a largely safe one. Kabul International Airport. Another plane doors open and out spill happy tourists. Men in sharp European suits. Women with kids in short, bright dresses. Local Afghan women strolling central Kabul. The Afghan ruler greeted with honors in Washington, D.C., then onward to Tehran, at the time thoroughly pro-Western, then Afghanistan, then on to India, Goa, or Thailand. In antiquity, this road tied China to India, to Persia, to the Near East, to Europe. Hence the pretty epithets, the crossroads of peoples, the solar plexus of Eurasia. And yes, the landscapes are unreal and sun-drenched. But remember, Afghanistan has a far more famous nickname, the graveyard of empires. The cliché says every would-be strongest power, regional or global, tries to conquer Afghanistan to control trade. Likely story. The last 500 years of global business weren't donkey caravans and camel trains over mountain passes. They were ships. Ships evolved from sail to tankers and container giants. And that's what carries world trade. Afghanistan has no access to the sea. Never did. Gold? Oil? Gas? Compared to neighbors, Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan has no meaningful motherlode of any of the three. So what does it have? That old line. Geography is destiny, and Afghanistan's destiny is brutal. The only land corridor from Central Asia down toward India and the Persian Gulf. If you control Afghanistan by force, you can lean on India, on Pakistan, on Central Asia, and through it, inevitably, on Russia. King of the Hill rules. That's why a country with a GDP several times smaller than Elon Musk's personal fortune never leaves the global headlines. And the modern mess begins with the duel between colonial Britain and Tsarist Russia. 19th century. The British Empire is the planet's heavyweight. London controls a fifth of global trade and 2/5 of global output. Why? The strongest navy and colonies. Everywhere. The jewel, of course, is India. A motherlode of then critical resources. Cotton, tea, indigo. A vast pool of labor. Around 200 million people. A geographic hinge of trade between Asia and Europe. Where does Russia fit into this? And Afghanistan? Tsarist Russia is enormous on land, but essentially landlocked. The only route to warm, high-traffic seas is through the Bosporus and Dardanelles into the Black Sea, straits controlled by Turkey, the Ottoman Empire. You've heard of the Crimean War. Strategically, it's about Russia reaching for the straits to get into the Mediterranean, to touch the world ocean and compete with the big colonial empires. France and Britain say absolutely not, and back Turkey. Russia is shredded and keeps no warm water gateway. What now? Go east. You've likely seen Vereshchagin's blazing canvas, the apotheosis of war, born of Russia's conquests in Central Asia. In 1865, Russia takes Tashkent. In 67, Bukhara. In 68, Samarkand. In 73, the Khiva Khanate. In 76, the Kokand Khanate. Next on the map, Afghanistan, and beyond it, the warm Indian Ocean. London wants none of this. Historically, most invasions of India do come out of the Central Asian interior. Think Alexander the Great. Even before Russia absorbs what is now Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan, Britain spends decades trying to pull Afghan lands under its sway. Back to Afghanistan, and why Britain and the Russian Empire collided head-on. Why does Russia want Afghanistan? As a springboard, a key, an overland pass to the Indian Ocean. Why does Britain want it? As a buffer, a minefield, a keep-out strip to stop the Russians. There's a young British officer in Afghanistan at the end of the 19th century who nails the core problem. He writes, "Tribe fights tribe. The people of one valley fight those of the next. Each clansman considers his neighbor a blood enemy. One rises against another, yet all rise against outsiders." The officer's name? Winston Churchill. Yes, that Churchill. Future British PM, co-architect with Stalin and Roosevelt of the post-war order, the man who would talk about an Iron Curtain. About Afghanistan, he saw the central curse, a state that never coheres. No single shared project strong enough to bind everyone. Nothing like Egyptians around the Nile, Americans around the Constitution, Russians around faith, czar, language. Look at the map. There is no single dominant people. The country is a patchwork: Pashtuns, Tajiks, Hazaras, Uzbeks, Turkmen. No single official language either. Pashto for some, Dari for others. Balochi, Uzbek, and a scatter of smaller tongues. But what about Islam? Yes, Islam is the one broad glue. It does not erase the potential for intergroup hostility. And Afghan fury burns far hotter toward foreigners. Churchill again, about his own army. "We proceeded systematically, village by village. We demolished houses, filled in wells, blew up towers, cut down the great shade-giving trees, burned the crops, and destroyed the reservoirs, in a punitive desolation." And then Churchill calls Afghans savages, barbarians, a degenerated race on civilization's fringe. Imagine it from the other side. Strangers with guns keep stomping into your house to impose their rules. There's soon no peaceful population left. Every farmer hides a rifle. Every woman takes a knife. Every child is raised to be ready to kill a foreigner. Anyone who tries to conquer Afghanistan steps on the same rake. You don't fight a massive army, you fight partisans. Nomad bands and farmers, for whom war isn't a job, it's a way of life. That kind of guerrilla grind buries empires, again and again. Exhibit A, the FIM-92 Stinger, a shoulder-launched fire-and-forget anti-air missile. Light, silent, no emissions, meaning you can't easily spot the shooter before launch. And after launch, he melts away. On September 25, 1986, Afghan Field Commander Abdul Ghaffar fires a Stinger at Soviet helicopters coming in to land at Jalalabad. What happens next? By the summer of 1987, by some counts, the Afghans are knocking down 1 or 2 Mi-24s a day. Now do the math. A Stinger shot costs approximately $40,000 to $70,000. A helicopter costs more than $10 million. The arithmetic does the killing, especially when the US ships the Mujahideen roughly 1,000 of these launchers. The result? Soviet aviation stops being a trump card and turns into a bleeding ledger of money and men. Which brings the real question. Why did the USSR dive into Afghanistan at all? In hindsight, the verdict feels obvious: a mistake. The war will cost $30 to $50 billion. Officially, 15,000 Soviet soldiers will be killed. A new phrase will enter Russian that everyone understands today: Cargo 200. And another 53,000 will be wounded. The Soviet economy and ideology both buckle on the Afghan adventure and, ultimately, collapse. But in 1979, at the jump-off, it looked manageable. Oil prices were rising. The US economy, Moscow's main rival, was sputtering, with record inflation and unemployment. Iran had just had its Islamic Revolution. Washington lost its loyal ally, the Shah. A month before the invasion, a mob in Islamabad, Pakistan, burned the US embassy to chants of death to America. If not now, when? To secure a loyal, controllable regime in Kabul. Add one more crucial factor: the rise of radical Islamist fundamentalism across the Middle East. The USSR's entire Central Asia is Muslim, meaning charismatic preachers from the people will be heard far louder than party functionaries. The Politburo logic hardens. Better to grab Afghanistan before it festers and impose order. Instead, Afghanistan becomes the classic suitcase with a broken handle. Too heavy to carry, too valuable to abandon. There's no peaceful population left because everyone is either fighting or helping those who fight. For the next 10 years, the US runs Operation Cyclone, training mujahideen, arming them, writing checks. Add up the hardware, trainers, and the rest, you land around $3 billion. Were those investments smart? They didn't just raise fighters against the Red Army. They also nurtured the most infamous terrorist in modern history, Osama bin Laden, architect of 9/11. The circle closes. The US and NATO then invade Afghanistan, and 20 years later leave with the same result as the British Empire and the Soviet Union. No one has ever managed to subdue Afghanistan. And behind every war, behind all those billions that look wasted, stand very specific people. Meet Robert J. Stevens, CEO of Lockheed Martin from 2004 to 2013. Lockheed builds American warplanes, missiles, ISR systems, drones, kit, the works. It's a public company, so comp is public too. Beyond base salary, Stevens walks with roughly $75 million in bonuses during the Afghan years. Or Stephen Orenstein, owner of Supreme Food Service. From 2005 to 2011, he receives $5.5 billion in US government contracts to deliver fresh food to American troops. Or the founder of the private military company Blackwater. In 2007, he lands a $1 billion federal contract to fight in Iraq and Afghanistan. Or those two 20-something hustlers who pry $300 million out of the Pentagon to supply arms and ammo to the US and Afghan armies. Their saga becomes the film War Dogs. War is math, darling. Anyone who says otherwise is either in on it or naive. Two takeaways. First, every war is dirty business, and almost everyone tries to cash in, no matter how righteous the speeches sound. Second, Afghanistan is the perfect example of a country whose people are an afterthought. It's a board for geopolitical ambitions and a trough for someone's profits. Britons, Soviets, Americans, each tried to gift Afghanistan their civilization without asking Afghans if they wanted it. Case in point, at Moscow's request, Czechoslovaks build a trolleybus line in Kabul. There's a photo where the contrast is savage. Trolleybuses, more needed than camels. By 2002, the transport of the future is a rusting relic. Time passes, and the only lines that grow are attack graphs and opium yields. By 2010, per the IMF, 97% of Afghanistan's GDP is foreign aid. When the US finally leaves and the Taliban take power almost without a fight, note their first official document, August 19, 2021. A declaration of victory over the British Empire and the USSR, and by implication, the latest invaders. From the outside, it looks wild to see Lavrov or Chinese envoys sitting at formal tables with a movement they officially call terrorists. From the inside, everyone has interests again. Mid-2000s, two curious headlines. A Chinese state corporation wins a 30-year, $3 billion concession to develop a copper deposit in the Mesinak Valley. Another Chinese outfit wins a tender to drill oil in the north. Beijing's playbook is the smart one. Resources plus infrastructure on credit, the same pattern China runs in Africa. By 2019, Afghanistan's Ministry of Mines and Petroleum values the country's underground riches at $3 trillion. Beyond copper, there's iron ore, coal, and, most importantly, lithium and other rare earths. In 2010, Pentagon analysts dub Afghanistan the Saudi Arabia of lithium. Lithium is the key feedstock for batteries of every kind. In a world pivoting to EVs, mining it would be a very big deal. So why hasn't capital flooded in? Because nobody wants the risk. Then why are China or Russia meeting the Taliban? Because they do want to take the bet, just not with their own domestic security. Look at the map. China touches Afghanistan via the Wakhan. On the Chinese side live the Uyghurs, China's Muslim minority, famous because Beijing runs a digital police state over them. For years, Uyghur militants have trained in Afghanistan, then try to shake things inside China and seed radical ideas. The same fear of transnational jihad puts Central Asian governments on alert too, hence their willingness to meet the Taliban, to test their deal-making and talk containment. My read on Afghanistan? In the near term, it will not stop being one of the world's core problems, if only as a source of narco-trafficking and terror. But the scale of those problems was inflated by the great powers, their ambitions, and their greed. The open question, will they keep skimming from the chaos, or finally leave the place alone long enough to listen?